and a man always on the smart wall, Caleb Ziblin. I mean, guys, the president was very clear. It's not what most Ghanaians were possibly expecting, where they were just expecting 3 shifts where you go to work, I come, and all of that. It looks like it's bigger than what we all projected, where when he spoke today and per the document available in the public space, the 24-hour economy is supposed to be that paradigm shift that will solve most of our structural economic problems, where he spoke of some 8 pillars that the 24-hour economy will run on. And Caleb has been studying these 8 pillars, and he's on the smart wall to walk us through. Tell us, it's not just about shift system where you go to work in the afternoon and come to work in the evening or in the morning. It's more than what people were projecting or what people's understanding of the 24-hour economy. It looks more complex and more like a structural solution to Ghana's economic problems. What can you say about those 8 pillars that the president put out?
So the 24-hour economy is being implemented in 2 prongs. The first is with the business sector. That's where they incentivize businesses to work these 3 shifts that everyone knows about. The second leg is more structural. So that's trying to deal with some structural issues that the economy is already facing and how to address these issues. So after incentivizing business, it takes a step further to fix some structural problems we have. So now the first one is the Grow 2024. So this is more about the agri sector, where the goal is to boost agricultural productivity and all of that. And if you look at the document, the first step is that they are going to set up agricultural parks around the Volta Lake and the Volta Basin. And it's very interesting because they're trying to create a whole national irrigation system from the Volta Lake. So that's for the Grow 2024 or the Grow 24 with the...
There's also the Make 2024, yes. The 24, which definitely will talk about manufacturing as well, right?
Yeah, so with the Make 24, they are trying to, aside incentivizing businesses to build more production and then to build more capacity, the second part is that they are going to build industrial hubs across the country. And also across more than 50 national parks across the country. That's for the Make 24. And aside that, they're also going to, with these factories, they're going to have their own energy grid. So do not rely solely on the national grid that we have now, the Akosombo, the Bui, and then the others. They're going to focus only on their own energy grid with mainly mainly biogas and then solar.
So renewables.
Exactly. And then there'll be a fail-safe for the national grid in case something happens to their own power grid.
Now, Winston, let me come to you on the Build 24. This aspect is supposed to focus on infrastructure, one thing that the country actually lacks, and we talk about this a lot. In fact, if you are talking about economic transformation and industrialization, you can't do this without talking about infrastructure.
With all that has been said and done, getting to the market, getting the product to produce or manufactured product to the market, we need structures and logistics. And this logistical efficiency can best be adduced when we have proper transport system, we have proper road system connected to the factories and industries, we have sustainable energy supply, while we understand that we need to zone these industrial parks to ensure accessibility in terms of mapping and targeting, especially from marketing to distribution. And these are critical by government's infrastructure, and there should be a strategy government intends to implement. We'll get to the figures as to the strategy and the challenges that's likely to pop up due to the proposed financing of about 4 billion needed to manufacture, or let's say see through this particular project.
Now, in fact, this Bill 24 is the powerhouse of the 24-hour economy, because in there, you don't just have roads and transport, you have energy and industrial zones. We will zero in on the energy conversation, but I want us to move to, Caleb, the 4th pillar, which talks about Show 24, creative economy and tourism. And I know that the creative people have been pushing for, some sort of attention over the years. They say that this could be one of the ways that a country can use to build the economy in terms of influence and all of that. How is the Show 24 going to work, and what would be its contribution to the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program, Caleb?
Yeah, so with the 24-hour economy, it's supposed to increase production. This means that there's supposed to be a glut of Ghanaian-made goods on the market. And in order for businesses to continue producing, they need a market for them.
Absolutely.
So for the Show 24, it's for government agencies, they are the first step, to now buy locally. From the government agencies, they're now going to have some fairs and expos where they showcase Ghanaian-made goods for people to buy. And also, there's going to be something they call the Ghana Mall.
Wow.
An actual mall, like the Accra Mall and the likes, and also an online platform where vendors and then producers can put their goods on there and sell them for both local and international audiences. That
would be interesting, Winston. Yes. It sounds familiar, right? Where we've had many programs made in Ghana and all of that. But this is going to sit within a proper setup, according to the president.
And an interesting part of the show is that the National Cathedral site, we want to convert that from the National Cathedral into something like the Ghana Mall.
Oh, I see. So that's where the Ghana Mall is going to be, right?
They're proposing that. So
okay.
It's not been accepted yet, but then in the document, they propose that instead of the cathedral, we have a showcase where they can sell goods and have expos and all of that at the National Cathedral site.
Winston, we've been here before. Does this ring a bell?
It does. And certainly, I think it's a very fantastic idea. If we are to look at it from the direction of China itself, who has been leading the forefront of SME structure globally. Their economy has been backed by SME. Also, we know about Singapore, who is also, if you look at the economies that have been backed by SMEs, they are those that you can see they reflected in the life of the individual. Because SMEs are small and medium-scale enterprises. They are closer to the business. They are closer to the communities than the macro level conversation. So from the Ghana Mall perspective, if you look at other models that have been run over the world, you see about 5 SMEs deciding to come together, get an office space, and put out their product. So you go there, you are bezeled with choices, and you end up buying 2 or 3 of a product, not knowing these are all individually backed SMEs in their country. That is what China has been doing over the years, and you see them taking over markets slowly because they have products and they give you options to choose from. So there are instances where you go to countries where the manufacturers tell you there are grades of products in the market, telling you that they are able to meet each market demand and each class of people depending on your wage and salary. And that is that dynamic we must look at going into the sector.
It will be interesting to have, the Ghana Mall you speak of, right, which will possibly go 24 hours, where anytime you can walk into that mall, that space and shop. We know currently the malls we have, around 9 or 10, you see most of them have actually closed. And so if the 24-hour economy is really going to work and we are going to possibly turn the National Cathedral site to that sort of, business zone or industrial zone, it possibly means that you're going to have malls running 24/7, and anytime you walk there, you possibly will get some goods. Now, the 5th, pillar is the Connect 24. This will actually tackle supply chain inefficiency. What more do we know about the Connect 24? Very important. You can't have a 24-hour economy without connecting various supply chains to solve some of the structural issues.
Getting those systems running is essential, especially for manufacturers. We know in the industries who work on efficiency, their machines getting the goods and services to the warehouses, getting the materials on time, you need logistical services. And if these are run efficiently, one key challenge that is quite possible is that over the years, you run by highways and most of the roads, you end up finding big logistical vehicles breaking down on the road. If those services structures are in place, if those emergency interventions are in place, if access to quality roads, and there must be definite time for those machines to be moving on the road, because if you're running 24-hour economy, there should be time run. We can't be having those same cars fighting with normal workers on the street going to the same direction during the day hours. If you look at our structure of our township, it's quite possible we lose almost about 8 hours, possibly, give or take.
Because of traffic.
Because of traffic. That is labor loss, that is business opportunity loss, that is time loss, and we can't recover those that has been lost. But one thing I've seen is certain interventions are coming through in some key structures. Yesterday, I had a conversation with the road minister. He was telling me that it's high time government decides to expand the road networks. And he said critical roads that leads to inlands and outlands, that leads to strategic distribution centers from the north to the south. They need to expand them to ensure movements are really enhanced. And this comes to light in the Connect 24. We're hoping that in as much as these are all west, they need a financing model to ensure these are run efficiently. Other than that, we'll still be having the same challenge we've been having over the years, where we start projects, but the continuity becomes a key challenge. We are not able to sustain them because of financing challenge. We know the gap that has been existing, about 5% of GDP, becomes a key battle that we need to close that gap, especially in financing critical projects.
It'll be interesting to have air cargo hubs, cold chains, inland water transport, and mainly that will focus on the Volta Lake, isn't it?
So the vision is that the Volta Lake will transport goods from the southern sector to the northern sector. No, we don't really have a good rail system in the country. And we have the lake. So instead of finding infrastructure to build the rail,
which connects the country really well.
In the short term, they are looking at using the Volta Lake to transport goods across the country, along with using the Volta Lake for irrigation purposes. And also, we talked about having agricultural parks along the Volta Lake, and also there will be industrial hubs across the country. So according to the policy document, these are supposed to link. So there's a link between the Volta Lake, then you have your agric sector, your agric park, then directly goes into the industrial hubs. So instead of you coming all the way to the city or having locations scattered across, it's all linked from the Volta Lake down to the agricultural parks and feed straight into the industrial hubs. So there's a linkage between all of that with roads and then everything. But it all depends on funding.
The interesting aspect of these dynamics. The fact that we have internal, let me say, brain drain within the country, where we have key experts all fighting to come to the central capital of Accra, and instead of distributing them across the country from the north to the east to the west. And all these are essential. With what is being programmed, we're hoping that this expert distribution, instead of we always having them leave the source of country because of lack of access or opportunity to put their skills into use. So I'm sure there is aspect of the 24-hour economy that talks about skills mismatch, and think when we come to that place.
Aspire 24.
In fact, it will be interesting to see how this Connect 24 will reduce traffic and road carnage in terms of accidents on the roads, where you see cargoes and other things, getting into accident and all of that. If we're able to,
the solution is just make the roads bigger.
Well, but it's expensive. Is the money, right? See Kumasi Accra, the Accra Kumasi Road. See the number of years we've spent just to dualize that road. How much more talking about moving from Accra to the northern region, right? So if you have the Volta Lake, which you possibly do not need asphalt on the Volta Lake, on the Volta River, and you can capitalize on that and move some of the goods on water instead of the land or the roads, I think that it will really save us a lot. And in terms of the loans we take to construct some of these roads and all of that, repair work and all of these things will be a thing of the past. And for me, I think that the Volta Lake or the river is a big economic, hub where we've not been able to utilize it. Speaking about even the Volta Lake, come think of the Lake Bosomtwe. Lake Bosomtwe is the only natural lake we have in the country. But there are 24 towns around the lake, and neither of the towns have none of the towns have actually good roads. All the roads connecting the 24 towns are bad roads. You see people coming there to do business, establishing hotels and all of that. But for people to leave, let's say, the middle part of the country or the southern part of the country to go to Lake Bosomtwe to have fun and engage in economic, it's difficult because of the road connection.
Until recently, where the Ashanti Regional Minister began the Ashanti Festival, where a key activity was done there, most people did not even understand the beauty of the lake then. And you mentioned a very important aspect, that is the road structure. We are hoping that we will not keep seeing this is a warning not just to the government but to the road minister, where contractors always see the third year of every election cycle as an opportunity to construct election-related roads. And these are roads that are as thin as a piece of paper, that every moment it rains, it begins to wash away. And this is something that is reflected every year. Instead of focusing on building a very durable road, like the one we have between the Legon to Shiashi stretch. And this has been there from the time I was in university when it began. And then the road is still quality. We've not seen any pothole there. That is the quality of roads we need in that hinterlands.
You spoke about Fund 24, you've spoken about SMEs and all of that. But I want us to look at the Aspire 24, which will be mainly skills and education. Caleb, what do we have when it comes to the Aspire 24?
So for the Aspire 24, this is also a very structural one. It goes to teaching, so it will start with changing the curriculum for students and then early learners to understand that their skill sets is different now. So they are talking about training people in online working, training people in cybersecurity skills, training people to work as phone technicians and everything. And this is also linked to the Ejumarua program and the National Apprenticeship program. So they'll be fed directly into the Aspire 24 to give them more skills so they can come out and then operate some apprenticeship shops here and there.
How about the Go 24? I mean, when you hear the 24-hour economy for the first time, the first thing you think about is MMDAs and all of those things, having 24-hour service, shops running 24 hours. It looks like the Go 24 really is the ordinary Ghanaians' understanding of 24-hour economy. What does that one also say?
So before the election or prior in the lead up to the election, we all thought that right now every government agency will be required to work 24 hours. That was the thinking that we all go into this election. But then with the Go 24, it leaves this at the discretion of the agency. So if the MDA or the agency sees that they can work 24 hours, they will then decide that they can work 24 hours. So there's no central government policy.
So it will be their discretion.
Exactly. So the central government doesn't determine or doesn't instruct the agencies to work 24 hours. Whoever is in charge of this agency would have to determine if they can work 24 hours. And this also comes with increased compensation costs, because either you spread your workers thin and then have some come in the afternoon and some in the evening, you have to recruit more workers.
True.
So that
spend more on energy.
Exactly, it's more on energy and all of that. So this has to do with so much planning. And if you look at the District Assembly Command Fund as well, 25% of that is mandated for every district to operate a 24-hour market. So all the MDAs have to operate a 24-hour markets now. And with the allocation now, that's about $183 million across the country. That will be used to create 24-hour markets.
But going 24, the big question now that we need to possibly spin the conversation to is the energy sector. If you are going to turn the economy around for 24 hours, it means that every point in time the economy should be working. You need reliable power supply. And in fact, currently, what we are facing as a country is the shortfall payment, where it has become a big burden on government. And that's the reason why we are seeing the new 1 cedi additional levy on fuel, so that government can have some money to buy fuel to power the thermal plant. We've seen the PRC aspect where they've been able to cater for 27% of that, a burden. Now, just look at 2025. Government's projection is that if we continue to go business as usual, we will be paying in excess of 2.2 billion in power shortfalls or energy sector shortfalls. In fact, that will mean that government will have to pay subsidy in excess of $2.2 billion. And the 24-hour economy itself needs $4 billion for implementation, $4 billion for implementation. Just look at how much we need every year to pay for shortfalls. And this was an economy without 24-hour operation. Maybe not to the max or not to the level where this 24-hour economy policy or program wants it to operate at. Now, if we begin to operate at 24-hour, possibly if we begin to get people more operating in the night and all of that, are we likely to see the energy sector struggling? Is government likely to pay more shortfalls? I'll start with Winston and I'll come to Caleb on this.
You know, it's an interesting dynamic, looking at what is supposed to power industrialization with this energy. Right now, the cost of energy is very expensive to run with.
Yeah.
You look at the operational cost. Most of the time, the output that you get from your production and all, comparatively to the energy source, you realize the differential is very wide. And that will be a key header for SMEs and small and medium-scale enterprises. But the provision of some linkages or, let's say, leverage for the SMEs in this 24-hour economy is something that they can take advantage of. One very important aspect of countries that have really demarcated their production and are able to decentralize energy supply is China. China decided to work on district level. They broke down their SME structure from town and villages. So we have villages that are people-centered, where skill set is closer to the people, where the customers and the markets targeted, because you realize there are some districts that are known for car manufacturing, there are some districts that are known for food production based on their strength. So it's important that those assessments and how much is needed are measured, because it can be calculated. And therefore, with that, we can able to determine how much of these regional dynamics contribute to the overall GDP. With power and cost elements, the key players, the costing is still going to be a problem. But the efficiency aspect is the distribution aspect. ECG is a key issue. ECG cannot be taken out of these dynamics. If we are able to work with ECG, the metering system, there are some people who say they buy credit by day. They just have a TV and fan, and they don't know why the light goes. The light doesn't pass through the walls, but still the light just disappears, and the cost will still be burdened up SMEs. SMEs, in order to break even, long-term loans, but before they even get to the mid-term, they've already developed losses. The key core that we have to understand, which must be backed by research, is why SMEs are failing in Ghana. They don't last more than 5 years in most industries. Mostly within the third year, you find them struggling or they declare bankruptcy. And the key cry you keep hearing from them is, why is the Ghana Revenue Authority on their necks when they are not making profit? And that is a challenge we need to address. If we address that particular loophole where government and businesses can leverage and collaborate for advancement, because if we always thinking about our taxes as a government, how much more the benefits, the let's say pension the companies have to pay, the SNIT payments and all the related costs they have to endure are elements that we need to think of in this project.
Interesting there, Caleb. An economy that government pays in excess of $1.4 billion in power sector shortfalls or subsidies to the sector. And already government is making a big claim that, look, we cannot bear this cost alone. That is why we are introducing, the new 1 cedi additional levy on fuel. PRC has also adjusted tariff, and we've seen an inclusion of new factors and all of that. Is this an energy sector that you think can actually handle a 24-hour economy?
Well, I think with the 24-hour economy, we are thinking the entire country would work 24 hours, but that's not the case. Because if you look at the documents, it's business specific. So not every business is going to sign up to the 24-hour economy. And there's not every manufacturing agency that is going to sign up to the 24-hour economy. So in the beginning stages, the first year or two, is going to be about planning and proper implementation. So in the first few years, we're going to see just a few companies actually sign up to the 24-hour economy. And that's not going to be a huge burden on the energy sector. So I think in the first few years it's possible. And if you look at the way the government is moving with the introduction of the 1 cedi levy on fuel, and then the PRC now implementing the 27% cost of fuel in the electricity tariffs. And remember that in September, there's going to be a major tariff
adjustments.
It means that they're going to include more things in the tariff structure that will take care of the shortfall. And in the first 5 months of this year, the Finance Ministry supported the energy sector with $500 million. That's before the implementation of the 1 cedi levy, and also before the PRC included the 27%. So looking at this trajectory, I think we can support it. And also if you look at the industrial plans of the 24-hour policy, where they want to set up their own energy grid stations for each industrial plant. This means that we're not going to be burdened by that on the national grid. And these companies will pay directly to their own substations. So, and usually with companies, and we spoke to someone from the ECG the last time, that industry players always pay their bills. The problems are with residential customers. Because industry players, you can locate them easily, cut them off, they're out of business. But then with the residential customers, it's very difficult to track them. So I think in the early stages, before the full implementation of the 24-hour economy, if that is fully implemented, the government should be able to play around with that. But after full implementation, and if the structural changes in the energy sector are not fixed, like Winston said, with ECG, with the tariffs not being reflexive of how much it actually needs to produce electricity, then we'll be back where we are.
Interesting to put this across that's, I mean, for a 24-hour economy to really, work on the wheels of a very good energy sector, you need your city to stay stable. So I think that government fundamentally, they've actually been able to get some of the fundamentals right. Right now, the city has gained more than 30% against the dollar. Inflation is down. I mean, if you look at all of these things, they are trying to get a dedicated funding for fuel purchases because they are aware that 70% of power comes from thermal. So you need money to buy the fuel. So if you get that dedicated funding source, that side is catered for. You don't have to worry every month about where you're going to get money to buy fuel to power the thermal plant. Now, with all of these good indicators in place, for me, the most important aspect we need to start talking about is the structural inefficiencies, the technical losses of ECG, transmission losses, and all of those things. Because ECG cannot be operating with about 32% technical loss, right? Or system losses, where every 100 cedis worth of power they sell, they are not able to get about 32 cedis. If some of these things continue, what is going to happen is that we consumers, residential areas, would have to be taxed to pay for the inefficiencies of ECG through either tariffs or taxes like the 1 cedi additional levy on fuel. Winston, final comment on whether you think this is possible.
The only aspect I support ECG on is the thievery that happens on their transformers. Because unfortunately, some of the transformers are hidden in deeper, isolated areas where people just go for them for the aluminium and some component just to melt and sell them to scraps. That is the aspect, because I've seen documents to that effect. They are losing hugely and they're spending more on that. And to that effect, I can say those who are doing that, thunder fire them. Basically, but we
tell them that 24-hour economy is down, so we need the power.
We need the powers in those key areas. You'll be there once it rains, those power goes off in certain areas, and this are some of the hurdles ECG themselves faces. So we speak to people to desist from such practices, basically.
Well, it will be interesting to see how an energy sector that, I mean, if we continue as business as usual, shortfall payments cumulatively could reach close to $9 billion US dollars. It will be interesting to see how the president will tackle inflation. Exchange rate for me is very key. The energy sector to keep the 24-hour economy running. It's been launched. I mean, the nomenclature has actually changed. It's now 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program. We wish government all the very best. Especially, it will be interesting to see how they solve the energy sector problems to keep this, program afloat. It's been Beyond the Numbers with me, Isaac Akufo-Addo, and I did this with...
My name is Winston Taki.
I'm Caleb Ziblin.
See you on Friday, 5:30 p.m., right?
Exactly.